You're the only match, she said, like we were talking about shoes. No apology, no warmth, just that tight, perfect voice she always used when getting her way. They hadn't called in 9 years, not for birthdays, funerals, or grandma's will. But now my father needed a kidney, and suddenly I was back in the group chat. Then she showed me the photo. A fake photo. My sister had photoshopped us hugging, faces stolen from old pictures, and posted it with the caption, "Family is everything. Reunited." Her PR campaign had already launched before I even returned her call, and that's when I realized they didn't want me back. They wanted my body, but I had something they didn't know about. Grandma left me more than a cabin. She left me power. Now it's my turn to write the story they tried to fake. But before we begin, let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. My name is Ava Delaney, and I'm 34 years old. Each morning, I wake up in my grandmother's restored lake cabin, now a sanctuary for women rebuilding their lives, and find a different kind of wealth than my father, Charles Delaney, ever imagined for me. The morning fog dances across the water while wind chimes, hung by our first retreat guest, sing softly near the porch. 9 years ago, my father's cold eyes turned to steel when I inherited this place from Grandma Marion. "You're dead to this family," he declared, his designer watch glinting as he pointed to the door. My shoulders tightened, but I walked away with my head high. I've built something meaningful here, yet every ripple on the lake whispers of unfinished business. My palm pressed against the cabin's weathered wood, feeling its quiet strength. But let me start from the beginning. The lake has a way of marking time that's different from city clocks. Each season paints its own story across the water, winter ice crackling like broken promises, spring bringing bursts of wild lupines that remind me of the bouquets Grandma Marion used to arrange in mason jars. 9 years have flowed by since I walked away from my father's mansion, trading crystal chandeliers for starlight and boardroom battles for morning meditation circles. You know those moments when life feels almost too peaceful? When you've finally found your rhythm and everything clicks into place? That's where I was last Tuesday morning. I'd just finished leading our sunrise yoga session, something that would have made my status-obsessed family cringe, when my phone buzzed. One new voicemail. I nearly dropped my mug of chamomile tea when I saw the name, Valerie Delaney, my sister. The same sister who'd stood silent in her perfectly pressed blazer while our father banished me. The same sister who'd blocked me on every social platform and returned my Christmas cards unopened. "Hey, Ava." Her voice wavered, softer than I remembered. "I know it's been a while. Dad's in the hospital. We need your help." My fingers went numb. The wind chimes outside suddenly seemed too loud, too cheerful for the weight settling in my chest. Need my help? That's rich, considering how thoroughly they'd erased me from their precious family portraits. "Please call me back. It's important." Important. The word hung in the air like smoke. I played the message 3 more times, searching for clues in her tone. The old Valerie, the one who used to braid my hair and share her chocolate chip cookies at recess, peeked through in those trembling pauses. But there was something else, too. An assumption. As if 9 years of silence could be bridged with a 30-second voicemail. Remember how I mentioned those wind chimes? One of our first retreat guests hung them. A woman who'd escaped an emotionally abusive husband. "Sometimes," she told me, "the sweetest sounds come after the longest silences." I thought I understood what she meant back then. Now, staring at my phone, that wisdom took on a whole new meaning. My thumb hovered over the call button. The rational part of my brain screamed to delete the message, to protect the peace I'd built brick by careful brick. But my heart? It raced with questions. Was Dad truly sick? Or was this another manipulation? And why now, after all this time? I walked out onto the porch, needing air. The morning mist still clung to the lake's surface, reminding me of all those childhood summers when Grandma Marion would wrap me in a warm towel after my early swims. "Trust your gut, sweet pea," she'd say, smoothing my wet hair. "It knows things your head hasn't figured out yet." My gut was sending mixed signals. Part of me wanted to return Valerie's desperate plea with 9 years of accumulated silence. Let them feel what I felt. The sting of unanswered calls, the weight of words left unsaid. But another part remembered the little girl who once shared her cookies, who cried at sad movies and saved injured birds. The phone felt heavy in my hand, like one of those choice points in life where every path forward comes with its own kind of pain. Delete the message and preserve my peace, or call back and risk reopening wounds that had taken years to heal? A blue heron landed on the dock, its reflection rippling across the water. 9 years ago, I'd watched a similar bird stand sentinel as I unpacked my car, fresh from being disowned. It had seemed like an omen then, of solitude, of starting over. Now here was another one, on another morning of choice. I looked down at my phone again. Valerie's number glowed on the screen, waiting. The wind chimes sang their gentle song, and somewhere in the distance a loon called out across the water. My finger moved on its own, hovering over the green call button as my heart thundered in my chest. I took 3 deep breaths, just like I taught my retreat guests, and pressed the call button. Each ring felt like a small eternity until... Ava? Valerie's voice was crisp, professional. The tremor from her voicemail had vanished. Thank you for calling back. My throat tightened. What's wrong with Dad? His kidneys are failing. She delivered the news like a weather report. He needs a transplant. We've all been tested, but... She paused, and I could practically hear her perfect posture through the phone. You're the only viable match. The world tilted sideways. I gripped the porch railing, feeling the rough wood under my palm. The same wood I'd sanded and stained myself during those first lonely months. Let me get this straight. After 9 years of complete silence, you're calling because you need my organs? Don't be dramatic, Ava. It's 1 kidney. Just like that, I was 25 again, standing in our father's study while he dismissed my career choices with the same casual disdain. The familiar anger rose, hot and sharp. Dramatic? You people treated me like I didn't exist. Dad said I was dead to the family. Remember that? That was a long time ago. Her voice took on that placating tone she used to use when covering for me with our parents. Things are different now. You'll understand when you see him. When I see him? I laughed, but it came out hollow. Who says I'm coming? Because it's Dad. The way she said it, like it explained everything, like it erased years of hurt, made my teeth clench. Look, I know things weren't perfect. Weren't perfect? The wind chimes jangled sharply as a gust hit the porch. You didn't even let me attend Grandma's funeral. Silence stretched between us. I could hear papers shuffling on her end, probably some important legal document or another. Always busy, always important, my sister Valerie. The past is the past, she finally said. This is about Dad's life. Surely that matters more than ancient history? Ancient history. That's what they called it when they'd systematically cut me out of every family photo, every holiday, every milestone. My hand shook as I pushed hair from my face. You haven't even apologized. What do you want me to say, Ava? Irritation crept into her voice. That we were wrong? That we should have handled things differently? Fine. But right now, what Dad needs, I cut in, is irrelevant until someone acknowledges what you all did to me. More shuffling papers, a muffled voice in the background, probably her assistant. We don't have time for this. Dad's condition is deteriorating. Are you coming or not? I closed my eyes, remembering Grandma Marion's words about trusting my gut. Right now, my gut was screaming that there was more to this story. 9 years of silence doesn't break without reason. I'll come, I said slowly, but on my terms. I'll drive down tomorrow, stay at a hotel, not the house. I'll see Dad, hear the whole situation from his doctors, and then make my decision. Fine. Valerie's relief was palpable, though she tried to hide it. I'll text you the hospital details. And Ava? Yes? Thank you. The words sounded rehearsed, empty. I ended the call before she could say more. My hands were trembling as I walked back inside, past the meditation room where women found their strength again, past the wall of thank you notes from survivors who'd rebuilt their lives here. That evening, I packed a small overnight bag, keeping it light, just enough for a few days. Whatever happened, I wouldn't be staying long. As I locked the cabin door, I paused to breathe in the pine-scented air, letting it steady me. The last rays of sunset painted the lake gold, and somewhere in the distance, a loon called out, haunting and lonely. You know those moments when you're about to step off a cliff, and you know the fall will change everything? That's how it felt, standing there with my keys in hand. I wasn't the same scared 25-year-old they'd cast aside. I'd built something here, something real and meaningful. Whatever game they were playing, whatever they really wanted, I wouldn't let them take that from me. Not again. The automatic doors of Memorial Hospital whispered open, releasing a blast of antiseptic air that took me right back to the days when Mom was sick. Same mint green walls, same squeaky floor tiles, same knot in my stomach. You'd think after 9 years, they'd have at least updated the decor. I found Dad's room on the 3rd floor, following the signs for nephrology. My heels clicked against the linoleum, each step echoing like a countdown. Through the doorway, I could see him. Smaller somehow, gray-faced against white sheets, tubes snaking from his arms. The mighty Charles Delaney, brought low by his own failing organs. My brother Marcus stood at the foot of the bed, tapping away at his tablet. He didn't even look up when I entered. "Sign these." He thrust a thick black binder at me, still focused on his screen. Medical history forms are tabbed in red, consent documents in blue. Initial every page. No hello, no how are you. Not even a glance of recognition. My throat tightened as I took the binder, its weight substantial in my hands. "Nice to see you too, Marcus." He finally looked up, his expression carefully blank. "The transplant coordinator needs these by end of day. There's a pen in the front pocket." I leafed through the pages, my stomach churning. Surgical risks, recovery protocols, post-operative care requirements. They'd highlighted every spot requiring my signature. Like I was just another contract to be processed. "Shouldn't we discuss this first?" I asked, closing the binder. "Maybe acknowledge the fact that none of you have spoken to me in nearly a decade?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "What's there to discuss? Dad needs a kidney. You're a match. The rest is details." "Details?" I almost laughed. "That's what you're calling it?" He turned back to his tablet, dismissing me entirely. "The cafeteria's on the 1st floor if you need somewhere quiet to read through everything." The cafeteria, where we'd spent countless nights during Mom's final months, sharing vending machine dinners and false hope. I grabbed the binder and headed there now, needing space to think. The place hadn't changed either. Same institutional tables, same burnt coffee smell. I claimed a corner spot, away from the handful of visitors scattered around. A forgotten cup of tea sat cooling beside me as I pored over the documents, each page more presumptuous than the last. "There you are!" Valerie's voice cut through my concentration. She slid into the chair across from me, designer handbag clinking against the metal table. "I've been looking everywhere. Have you signed everything yet?" I pushed the binder aside. "I just got here, Val. I haven't even had time to process." "Oh, but you have to see this first." She pulled out her phone, perfectly manicured nails tapping the screen. The response has been incredible. People are so moved by our story. Our story? She turned the phone toward me, and my blood ran cold. There on her Instagram feed was a photo of us, arms wrapped around each other, faces pressed close, both smiling radiantly at the camera. The caption read, "After years apart, crisis brings us together. Family is everything. Sister love, reunited, miracles happen." I stared at the image, my hands starting to shake. That photo, it wasn't real. The background was from the hospital lobby, but my face had been lifted from an old Christmas photo before everything fell apart. They digitally stitched us together, created this moment that never happened. "What is this?" My voice came out barely above a whisper. "Isn't it beautiful?" Valerie beamed, scrolling to show more posts. "We've got a whole campaign planned. Family united through faith. The local paper's already interested in running a feature." The room started to spin. More photos appeared. Old family pictures edited to remove the tension. Staged shots of empty hospital corridors with inspirational quotes overlaid. They'd crafted an entire narrative, without my knowledge, without my consent. "You planned this," I said, realization dawning. "Before you even called me, you had this whole story mapped out." "Of course we did." She reached across the table, trying to pat my hand. I pulled back before she could touch me. "We knew you'd come around, Ava. You always do the right thing." I looked down at that black binder full of papers waiting for my signature, then back at the fake photo of us embracing. 9 years of silence, and they hadn't changed at all. They still saw me as a resource to be used, a plot point in their perfect family story. "The right thing," I repeated, my voice hollow. And there it was. That familiar assumption that I would fold, would give them whatever they wanted, would play my assigned role in their carefully curated narrative. I waited until visiting hours were nearly over before confronting Valerie in the hospital parking lot. The summer evening had cooled, but my anger burned hot enough to keep me warm. She was just reaching her car when I called out. "We need to talk about that photo." She turned, keys jingling in her hand. "Which photo, sweetie?" The fake sweetness in her voice made my skin crawl. Remember when we were kids, and she'd use that exact same tone right before telling Mom I'd broken something she'd actually broken herself? Don't play dumb, Val. "The fake photo you posted, the one where you photoshopped us together like we're some happy reunited sisters." "Oh, that!" She waved dismissively. "It's just a little creative marketing. Everyone does it these days." "Creative marketing?" My voice cracked. "You're treating Dad's illness like it's a PR campaign." "Because it is." She fixed me with that familiar condescending stare. "Look, we both know how this ends. You'll give the kidney. You always fold. So why not get ahead of the story?" My stomach lurched. There it was, the truth behind the manufactured smiles and carefully crafted posts. They weren't just expecting my kidney. They were banking on my compliance. "You don't know me anymore," I said quietly. She laughed. Actually laughed. "Please. You're still the same people-pleasing little sister who'd do anything to make Daddy proud. The only difference is now you can actually be useful." I watched her drive away, her words echoing in my head. Useful. That's all I'd ever been to them, a resource to be tapped when needed. Back at the house, my old home, I waited until everyone had gone to bed. The family office was exactly where it had always been, down the hall from Dad's bedroom. How many times had I stood outside that door as a kid, listening to him make deals and destroy careers with equal ease? My hands shook as I picked the lock, another skill learned in childhood, though they never knew about that one. The door opened with a familiar creak. Moonlight spilled through the window, illuminating the massive desk where Dad had once told me I was dead to him. Now it was covered in papers, dozens of them, all carefully organized in labeled folders. Family United Through Faith campaign timeline. Media talking points, organ donation story, press release draft, local news, Channel 5 feature story, prep notes. I picked up the TV appearance notes with trembling fingers. They'd scheduled it for next week, a human interest piece about a family healing through medical crisis. There were bullet points about forgiveness, faith, and the power of blood ties. My role was already written, the prodigal daughter returning to save her father's life. But that wasn't even the worst part. They had contingency plans. If I refused, they'd already drafted statements about my ongoing emotional instability and inability to move past childhood grievances. They'd make me the villain, the daughter too selfish to save her own father's life. The scope of their manipulation stole my breath. Every angle was covered, every narrative controlled. They'd created a trap where my only choices were compliance or public crucifixion. You know that moment when you realize you're not actually in the story you thought you were in? When the ground shifts and suddenly everything looks different? That's what hit me as I stood there, surrounded by their carefully constructed lies. I wasn't the prodigal daughter in their redemption story. I was the organ donor in their tragedy, the plot device in their tearjerker. They'd written my role without me, planned my future without asking, just like they always had. My fingers brushed against another folder, this one older and stuffed in the back of a drawer. The label made my heart stop. Grandmother's will, original copy. The folder felt heavy in my hands, heavier than paper should. My grandmother had always been clever with her wealth, managing it in ways that drove my father crazy. He'd called her unnecessarily complicated whenever she added new conditions to her investments or changed her will. Now I knew why. I spread the documents across the desk, moonlight catching the edge of a yellow highlighter mark from years ago. The trust clause was right there, clear as day, waiting like a time bomb no one had noticed. In the event the primary beneficiary, Ava Delaney, voluntarily surrenders or transfers ownership rights to the lake property, all secondary access rights and privileges granted to remaining family members become null and void. The property and surrounding acreage will revert to public trust status under the State Conservation Board. I read it 3 times, my heart pounding harder with each pass. They'd hidden this from me. All these years, they'd let me believe I was just being difficult about a simple inheritance, when actually, "Oh, Grandma," I whispered, "you clever old fox." The implications hit me like waves. They couldn't force me out without losing everything. They couldn't sell the land or develop it, something Dad had always wanted to do, unless I willingly gave up my claim. The retreat's future wasn't just in my hands, it was legally protected by my grandmother's foresight. My hands trembled as I sorted through more papers. Meeting minutes from the family foundation showed they'd discussed reclaiming the property at least twice in the past year. They'd even contracted a real estate assessment, probably hoping to pressure me into selling once they had my kidney. Remember those old mystery movies where someone finds a crucial piece of evidence and suddenly everything clicks into place? That's how it felt, sitting there in Dad's office with 9 years of manipulation finally making sense. I grabbed my phone, hands shaking so badly I could barely type. The text to Marisol was brief. Need your legal eyes, emergency. Can you be up for a call in 5? Marisol had helped me set up the retreat's nonprofit status years ago. She'd left corporate law to advocate for women's rights, and she knew exactly how families like mine operated. 3 minutes later, my phone buzzed. I'm up. What's wrong? I ducked into the guest bathroom, turned on the shower for noise coverage, and called her. I need you to look at some documents, I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm sending photos now. Ava, slow down. Are you okay? They want my kidney. The words tumbled out. They're running this whole PR campaign about family reconciliation, but they never told me about this clause in Grandma's will. If I give up the property rights, they lose everything. Send me everything you have, Marisol said, her voice shifting from friend to lawyer. Don't confront them yet. Don't sign anything. And Ava? Take photos of every document you find. Use your scanning app, the one that timestamps. For the next 20 minutes, I photographed everything. The will, the trust documents, the PR materials, the medical forms they wanted me to sign. My hands were steady now, driven by purpose rather than panic. Got it all, Marisol said after I sent the last batch. This is actually brilliant. Your grandmother built in protection against exactly this kind of pressure. Give me until morning to review everything, but Ava, you're in a much stronger position than they think. I leaned against the bathroom wall, feeling that glimmer of power grow stronger. What do I do now? Act normal. Let them think their plan is working. I'll draft some options for you, but whatever we do next needs to be precise. This isn't just about the kidney anymore. It's about making sure they can never try this again. After hanging up, I carefully returned everything to the office, making sure each paper was exactly as I'd found it. The shower was still running, providing cover for my exit. As I turned off the water, I caught my reflection in the mirror. For the first time since arriving, I didn't see the scared little girl they expected me to be. I saw my grandmother's smile, that same subtle, knowing curve of the lips she'd get when she was 3 steps ahead of everyone else. I met Marisol at a coffee shop 30 minutes outside of town, far enough that we wouldn't bump into anyone who knew my family. The place had that generic chain store feel, all blonde wood and soft jazz. But right then, its very blandness felt like safety. You know that moment when you're about to hear news that could change everything? My hands wouldn't stop fidgeting with the paper sleeve on my cup. Marisol looked exactly as I remembered. Sleek black bob, minimal jewelry, and that focused energy that made her such a formidable advocate. She'd spread the documents across our corner table, post-its marking key sections. First, she said, sliding her reading glasses off, your grandmother was brilliant. This isn't just a property deed. It's a bulletproof trust with you as the linchpin. My throat tightened. Meaning? The cabin and surrounding land can only remain in family hands if you're actively maintaining it as a residence or community space. She tapped a highlighted paragraph. If you step down or transfer ownership, everything goes to the State Conservation Board. Your family can't develop it, sell it, or even visit without permits. I remembered summers watching Grandma work on crossword puzzles, how she'd smile that secret smile when she knew the answer but wanted me to figure it out myself. Had she seen this coming? Had she known they'd try to pressure me someday? What about the medical angle? I asked. Can they use the kidney situation to force my hand? That's the beautiful part. Marisol leaned forward, her voice low but intense. Any attempt to coerce you, especially using medical pressure, would violate the trust's good faith clause. If you can prove they're linking the kidney donation to property rights, they'll lose everything immediately. The weight I'd been carrying started to lift. So I'm not powerless. Far from it. She pulled out another document. But we need to be strategic. Right now, they think they have you cornered. Let them keep thinking that while we document everything. A group of teenagers burst in, laughing about something on their phones, and we paused until they passed. The normality of their presence felt surreal against what we were planning. "What's my next move?" I asked. "Go back. Tell them you're considering the donation. Be cooperative but non-committal. We need their PR campaign to keep rolling. Every post, every press release is evidence of manipulation." I nodded, feeling my pulse steady for the first time in days. "And then?" "Then we wait until they've shown their full hand. Document everything. Record conversations if you legally can. The more they push, the stronger our position gets." Looking down at the papers, I saw my grandmother's signature. The same elegant script that used to appear on birthday cards and Christmas tags now felt like a shield. "They'll hate me for this," I said quietly. Marisol's eyes softened. "They already tried to destroy you once. You don't owe them a second chance to finish the job." She was right. I gathered the documents, careful to keep the originals separate from our copies. The coffee had gone cold, forgotten during our planning. That evening, I walked back into the hospital with my spine straight and my voice steady. They were all there. Dad unconscious in his bed, my sister updating her social media, my brother mansplaining medical terms to a nurse. "I've thought about it," I announced, and their heads snapped up. "I'm willing to consider the donation." The relief in the room was instant and overwhelming. My sister actually squealed, already reaching for her phone. My brother started talking about scheduling tests. I kept my face neutral, but inside, I felt that same quiet strength I'd seen in my grandmother. They thought I was folding. They thought they'd won. I let them think it. But as I watched them celebrate, not one of them bothering to thank me or acknowledge the past 9 years, my eyes stayed cold. I thought about that trust document, safely copied and stored with Marisol. I thought about all their carefully laid plans, their PR campaign, their assumptions about my weakness. My sister hugged me, her phone already open to the camera app. "This is going to make such a great story," she whispered. I hugged her back, my smile not reaching my eyes. "You're right about that," I thought. "Just not the story you're expecting." I sat through that dinner like an actress in a play, watching my family perform their carefully scripted roles. The restaurant they'd chosen screamed old money, all dark wood and crystal glasses that caught the light just right for photos, perfect for their heartwarming reunion narrative. The reporter, Simon Walsh from the local paper, seemed exactly their type. Clean-cut, deferential, clearly used to writing fluff pieces about charity galas. My sister had positioned him at the perfect angle to catch what she called our candid family moments. "So, Ava," Walsh said, notepad ready, "how does it feel to reconnect after all this time?" I caught a warning glance from my brother. "Stick to the script," it said. My coffee churned in my stomach, but I smiled. "Family is complicated," I offered. "But in times of crisis, we find our way back." My sister beamed. It was exactly the kind of quote they wanted, vague enough to sound profound, just emotional enough to play well on social media. I watched her tap away on her phone, probably posting another staged photo. "Remember the cabin," I told myself. "Remember the trust. Remember why you're here." "And, Charles," Walsh turned to my father, who'd insisted on coming despite looking gray and drawn. "How has this experience changed your perspective on family?" Dad launched into his practice speech about forgiveness and second chances. The same man who'd called me dead to him was now talking about unconditional love. I focused on cutting my salmon into perfectly even pieces, keeping my face neutral. The flash of my sister's phone camera caught me off guard. "Got it," she whispered. "This'll be perfect for tomorrow's post about family dinners and healing." I excused myself to the restroom, needing a moment to breathe. The marble countertop was cool under my palms as I leaned over it. In my purse, my phone held Marisol's message. "Everything's ready. Just get me that reporter's contact info." When I returned, Walsh was packing up his notebook. Perfect timing. I caught him at the coat check, making sure my family was out of earshot. "Mr. Walsh," I said quietly, "I have another story you might be interested in. The real one." He paused, professional curiosity flickering across his face. "Oh?" I slipped him my card. The one with my private email. "Check your inbox tonight. There's more to this family reunion than what you heard at dinner." Back home, I spent 2 hours organizing the evidence. The fake social media posts, complete with metadata showing when they were manufactured. Emails from my siblings discussing how to manage my compliance. The trust documents proving their attempted manipulation. My hands shook as I attached everything to the email. Subject line: The truth behind the Delaney family reunion. Mr. Walsh, before you file your story, there are some things you should see. I hit send at 11:42 p.m. By midnight, his reply landed, Ms. Delaney, this is unexpected. I'll need time to verify these documents. How long before the transplant committee meets? 3 days, I typed back. My heart was pounding. They review my case on Friday morning. I'll work fast, he promised. But I have to ask, why come forward now? I stared at his question for a long moment. The truth felt dangerous, but it was all I had left. Because they're not asking for my forgiveness, I wrote. They're demanding my silence. And my kidney. Check the timestamp on when they first contacted me against when they launched their PR campaign. You'll see which mattered more to them. After I sent it, I sat in my hotel room watching the city lights blink outside. Somewhere across town, my family was probably celebrating what they saw as a successful dinner. They thought I was falling in line, playing my part in their perfect narrative. The transplant committee would expect to see a unified family on Friday morning. Instead, they'd find... What? My stomach clenched. Everything depended on Walsh now. His integrity, his speed, his willingness to turn a feel-good story into something darker but true. My phone buzzed. Another group text from my sister. Great dinner, everyone. Dad's so happy. Don't forget, final prep meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. Ava, bring those medical forms. I left it unread. Instead, I opened my email one more time and sent a quick message to Marisol. Evidence delivered. Now we wait. The next few days would change everything. I just hoped Walsh would work fast enough. The call came at 7:43 a.m. I was in the hospital cafeteria, pushing scrambled eggs around my plate, when Peter Walsh's number flashed on my screen. It's running tomorrow, he said without preamble. Front page digital, print edition page 3, daughter or donor, the true story behind the reunion. My fork clattered against the plate. A nurse at the next table glanced over. You're sure about the timing? I asked, lowering my voice. Editorial approved it an hour ago. Your documentation was... thorough. He paused. They'll see it first thing tomorrow morning. Are you ready for that? Ready? My stomach felt like I'd swallowed ice. As I'll ever be. Thank you, Peter. Don't thank me yet. This isn't the feel-good story they wanted. It's going to get messy. I ended the call just as Valerie appeared, perfectly coiffed despite the early hour. She slid into the seat across from me, already scrolling through her phone. There you are. The transplant coordinator can squeeze us in next Tuesday. I've already cleared everyone's schedules. She looked up, tapping her manicured nails against the table. We just need you to sign the final consent forms today. My mouth went dry. I'm still processing everything. The medical anxiety... Oh, please. She rolled her eyes. You've had days to process. The PR team needs a firm date for the follow-up piece. Of course. The PR team. Because this was never about reconciliation. It was about optics. I said I need more time. Time for what? To make us beg? Her voice took on that familiar edge. You always do this, Ava. Create drama when things should be simple. Simple. Like disowning your sister. Like faking photos for sympathy points. Like treating someone's organs as family property. My phone buzzed. An email from Marisol. I excused myself to the restroom to read it. Confirmation received from the trust administrators, she wrote. As long as you maintain trustee status, their access remains permanently blocked. They can't touch the property without your explicit consent. I gripped the sink, staring at my reflection. 9 years ago, they'd stripped everything from me. My family, my inheritance, my voice. Now I had what they didn't expect. Options. The Transplant Ethics Board's number was already in my contacts. I'd saved it days ago, knowing this moment would come. My finger hovered over the call button. You'll give it, my sister had said. You always fold. Not this time. The line rang twice before a calm voice answered. Transplant Ethics, this is Sandra. Hi, this is Ava Delaney. I'm scheduled for a living donor evaluation on Friday morning. My voice shook slightly. I need to formally rescind my consent. I understand. Can you verify your date of birth? As I gave her the information, I could hear keyboards clicking, documents being updated, a medical door closing. Ms. Delaney, I've noted your withdrawal of consent in the system. Would you like to speak with our donor counselor? No, thank you. I've made my decision. All right. Please know you can change your mind at any time. The ethics board respects your autonomy in this matter. Autonomy. What a beautiful word. When I stepped out of the restroom, Valerie was waiting, waving a stack of papers. Found the consent forms. Let's get these signed before— I just called the ethics board, I cut in. I'm not doing it. She froze. What? I withdrew my consent. I'm not donating. The papers crumpled in her grip. You can't do that. The press release is already written. The interview is scheduled. Dad's counting on this. Dad counted me out years ago, I said quietly. You all did. The only difference is, this time I'm choosing to walk away. Her face contorted. You selfish little— She caught herself, glancing around the hallway, always mindful of appearances. Think about what you're doing. Think about Dad. I have thought about it. For 9 years, actually. That's how long it took any of you to speak to me again. I shouldered my bag. And you only did it because you needed something from me. Where are you going? Home, to my cabin, to my life. I turned back one last time. You might want to check tomorrow's paper. I hear there's an interesting story running. Her confusion would turn to panic soon enough. By this time tomorrow, everyone would know the truth. About the fake photos, the manipulation, the years of silence. They'd crafted their narrative without me. Now I was writing my own ending. The morning headline blazed across my phone screen. Family reunion or medical coercion. The dark truth behind a daughter's return. Below it, a side-by-side comparison showed the fake photo of my sister and me hugging next to the metadata proving it was digitally altered. You know that moment when you've jumped off the high dive and you're suspended in the air, knowing there's no turning back? That's how my stomach felt as I scrolled through the article. The journalist had done his homework. Every fake post, every manipulative email, every staged photo, laid bare for the community to see. He'd even uncovered old press clippings about my father's family values speeches, juxtaposed with the truth about disowning me over the cabin inheritance. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. First came the angry texts from my siblings, then the panicked calls from their PR team. I silenced them all. By noon, local news stations were running with the story. Breaking, prominent developer Charles Delaney, accused of orchestrating false family reconciliation. The crawling headlines felt surreal, like watching someone else's scandal unfold. Remember those wind chimes at my cabin? The ones that always sound different depending on the breeze? That's how the public response felt. Chaotic at first, then finding its rhythm. Comments flooded in, most supporting my decision. Brave. Standing up to toxic family. Finally, someone tells the truth. I was picking at a sandwich in the hospital cafeteria when my sister burst in, her designer heels clicking frantically across the linoleum. Do you have any idea what you've done? Her face was splotchy with rage. The children's wing donors are pulling out. Dad's biggest development project just lost its backing. The hospital board is— She caught herself, lowering her voice as heads turned our way. The board is reviewing all his previous donations for ethical concerns. Sounds like consequences, I said quietly. They're destroying everything he built. No. I met her gaze. He did that himself. The moment he decided public image was worth more than truth. A nurse appeared at our table, her expression professionally neutral. Ms. Delaney? The transplant coordinator asked me to inform you. You've been officially removed from the donor registry. All your paperwork has been voided. Relief washed over me like a cool wave. No more pressure. No more manipulation. No more playing the role they'd written for me. Thank you, I said, and meant it. My sister's phone chimed. Probably another crisis alert. She glanced at it and went pale. Dad's awake. The doctor just told him about the article. She grabbed her purse. There's an emergency board meeting in 20 minutes. You need to come explain yourself. No, I said, standing up. I don't. Ava, please. Just tell them you were confused, that the journalist twisted your words. My words are finally my own. I shouldered my bag. And I'm done letting this family twist them. She called after me as I walked away, her voice echoing through the cafeteria. Where are you going? Home. The word felt different now, stronger, like it finally belonged to me alone. In my rental car, I could see the hospital board members arriving, their faces grim behind tinted windows. My father's business partners huddled near the entrance, phones pressed to their ears. Local reporters clustered with their cameras, hoping to catch the fallout. But I wasn't part of that story anymore. My bag was already packed, sitting in the trunk. The cabin keys felt warm in my pocket. Not just keys now, but proof. Proof that sometimes standing your ground means walking away. As I pulled out of the parking lot, my phone lit up with a news alert. Breaking, major donors withdraw support following family scandal. Below it, a photo showed my father's name being removed from the hospital's donor wall. 9 years ago, he'd erased me from the family with a single sentence. Now his own carefully crafted image was being erased, letter by letter, while the whole city watched. I turned off my phone and pointed the car toward home, toward my cabin, my retreat, my truth. The morning's fog had burned away, leaving the kind of clear sky that makes everything look sharp and new, like a fresh page, waiting for its own story to begin. 2 days after the media explosion, I stood at the edge of my property, watching dawn creep across the lake. The air held that crisp sweetness you only get after rain, like nature hitting the reset button. My phone buzzed. Marisol's name lit up the screen. "It's done," she said without preamble. "The trust transfer just cleared. You're no longer merely the conditional caretaker. You're the sole owner. No strings, no clauses, no family oversight. It's all yours, Ava." My throat tightened. "They can't touch it?" "Not legally, not ever." I heard papers shuffling. "Your father's lawyers tried to argue the original trust terms, but once the ethics violation made headlines..." She paused. "Well, let's just say they withdrew their objections pretty quickly." I traced my fingers along the cabin's wooden railing, feeling every groove and knot. 9 years of maintenance, of building something meaningful, of proving I could be more than their disappointment. And yet, I almost gave in, Marisol. The admission felt heavy. That first day at the hospital when they handed me those consent forms, God, my pen was hovering right over the line. "But you didn't sign." "No." I watched a heron glide across the water, its reflection perfect in the still surface. "You know what stopped me?" My sister's voice, that smug, "you always fold" comment, like I was still that desperate to please daughter they could shame into submission. "Remember when you were little and hide and seek felt like this huge adventure? Every shadow could be a perfect hiding spot. Every corner, a new escape." That's how walking my property felt now. Rediscovering spaces I'd earned the right to claim. The garden beds I'd planted for the retreat's therapy sessions. The meditation circle overlooking the cove. The old boathouse I'd converted into an art studio. Each step reminded me how close I'd come to sacrificing it all just to earn their approval one last time. "You want to know the crazy part?" I said, realizing Marisol was still listening. "When that journalist interviewed me, he asked why I didn't expose them sooner. Why I let them control the narrative for so long. What did you tell him? That sometimes the hardest person to stand up to is yourself." I paused at the property line where my father had once planned to build a family compound. His vision, his rules. We get so used to making ourselves smaller, don't we? Easier to fold than fight. Marisol's voice softened. "You reminded a lot of women they don't owe anyone their body, Ava. Not even family. Especially not family." A lump formed in my throat. The morning sun caught the copper wind chimes my first retreat group had made, 30 pieces spinning their own wild song. How many women had found their voice here? How many had learned to unfold themselves in this space? "The land registry office needs one final signature," Marisol continued. "Should I bring the papers by this afternoon?" I watched a pair of deer emerge from the tree line, a mother and fawn, stepping carefully through the morning mist. They'd been visiting more often lately, as if they too sensed the shift in ownership. "Yes," I said, "it's time to make it official." We hung up and I completed my property walk. Every landmark held a memory now. The patch of wildflowers where Sarah had finally smiled after months of therapy, the lakeside bench where Maria wrote her first poem since leaving her abuser, the fire pit where Jennifer realized she could build a life without her manipulative parents. The sun climbed higher, burning off the last wisps of fog. Somewhere in the city, my family was probably still scrambling to rebuild their reputation, still trying to control a story that was never theirs to tell. But here in this moment, their voices felt distant, like echoes from another life, growing fainter with each step I took on my own solid ground. I pulled out my phone and sent Marisol a quick text. "Bring coffee when you come. The good kind. We're celebrating." The wood shavings curled around my fingers as I worked, each stroke of the carving tool deliberate and slow. I'd chosen cherry wood for its warmth, its stubborn density. 3 days I'd spent on this piece, letting the phoenix emerge from the grain like it had been waiting there all along. You know that satisfaction of finally doing something you've imagined 1,000 times? That's how it felt, sitting cross-legged on my workshop floor, coaxing wings and flame from raw timber. The morning light streamed through the windows, catching dust motes and wood particles in its beam. Someone had left the radio on in the main house. Soft jazz drifted across the yard, mixing with the steady scratch of my carving. Need any help? Rachel, one of our long-term residents, stood in the doorway. She'd been watching me work on this piece since I started. Almost done. I blew away a cluster of shavings, just finishing the tail feathers. The phoenix's wings spread wide across the plaque, each feather detailed with careful precision. But it was the eyes I'd spent the most time on. Fierce, forward-facing, unflinching. No more looking back. Remember those old fantasy books where magical creatures always knew their true names? That's what this felt like, carving my own symbol, my own truth, into something permanent. The family crest above my fireplace had hung there like a shadow for 9 years. Time to let in some light. "I've got the ladder set up," Rachel said. "And Sarah made coffee." My hands stilled. "How many people are out there?" "Just the current residents. Word got around what you were planning." Of course it had. Since the article broke, my inbox had been flooded with retreat applications. Women who'd read about my stand against family coercion, who saw their own stories in mine. Some even quoted my words back to me. "Your body is not a peace offering." I ran my fingers over the phoenix one last time, checking for rough spots. The wood felt warm, alive. "Okay," I said. "Let's do this." The main room was quiet when we entered, but I felt the energy. Anticipation hovering like static before a storm. 6 women sat scattered around the space, trying to look casual and failing. Sarah handed me a steaming mug without a word. The family crest hung above the stone fireplace where it had always been. Carved oak, gilt edges, Latin motto about legacy and honor. I'd stopped translating it years ago. Some words deserve to fade. "Need spotters?" Sarah asked as I positioned the ladder. I shook my head. "Just witness." The crest was heavier than I remembered, its weight all wrong in my hands. 9 years of dust had collected on the edges. As I lifted it free, someone inhaled sharply, like they'd been holding their breath without realizing. "Where should we put it?" Rachel reached for the crest. "Storage," I said. "I'm done carrying other people's symbols." The phoenix fit perfectly in the empty space. No forcing, no adjusting, just a clean, sure settling into place. When I stepped back down the ladder, the room had changed. Light hit the fresh carved wood differently, catching every ridge and valley. The bird seemed to move in the morning shadows, its wings forever caught in the moment of rising. Sarah touched my arm. "There's something else," she said. "Show her." Rachel pulled out her phone, opened her emails. "The Women's Shelter Network wants you to speak at their conference next month." They saw the article. My throat tightened. Public speaking wasn't my thing. I'd spent too many years learning to be quiet. But maybe that was exactly why I needed to do it. What would I even say? "The truth," Sarah said simply, "like you did with us." The phoenix watched from above, its carved eyes catching fire in the sunlight. In that moment, something clicked, a key turning in a lock I hadn't known was there. "I was never the villain in their story," I said. The words came steady, sure. "Just the threat." Rachel's fingers paused over her phone. "Is that a yes?" I looked around the room at these women who'd found their own ways to rise. At the phoenix that would guard this space long after we were gone. At the empty wall where a family crest had once demanded silence. "Yes," I said. And my voice didn't shake at all. 3 weeks after hanging the phoenix, I sat in my favorite spot, the garden bench overlooking the lake. Late afternoon sun painted everything in honey gold, and the air hummed with casual chatter from the pavilion where our newest residents were having tea. You know that moment when you realize peace isn't just the absence of chaos? It sneaks up on you. Like now, listening to women laugh freely on my property, their voices carrying across beds of black-eyed Susans and lavender. The same flowers my grandmother used to grow here, though back then they were always half-trampled by family garden parties where everyone wore masks of perfect contentment. Sarah appeared at my elbow with a manila envelope. "This came for you." "Hospital return address?" My stomach did that old familiar clench, but it was softer now. Distant. Thanks. Want company while you read it? I shook my head. I'm good. And I meant it. The envelope contained a single-page letter on official hospital letterhead, but the handwriting belonged to my father's longtime assistant, Marion. I recognized her precise cursive. She'd addressed all our childhood birthday cards because Dad never remembered to. Dear Ava, I hope this finds you well. I felt you should know about certain developments, given your history with the family. I paused, letting my gaze drift to the fire pit where we held our evening circles. Someone had already stacked fresh logs for tonight's gathering. The letter crinkled in my hands as I continued reading. Your father has been removed from the hospital board of directors, as well as 3 other charitable organizations. The publicity from the article has made his position untenable. Several major donors have withdrawn support from his developments, citing ethical concerns. A breeze stirred the garden, carrying the scent of herbs and approaching rain. Someone in the pavilion laughed, that full-bodied sound of a person remembering how to be free. The family's social standing has suffered significantly. Your sister Valerie's marriage is ending. Her husband's law firm felt the connection to your father had become a liability. I thought of all those staged photos Valerie had posted. All that carefully curated perfection. Had she ever known who she really was beneath the performance? Your father asked me to include his private number in case you wished to. The rest of the letter blurred. I stood, walked to the fire pit, and pulled out my grandmother's old Zippo lighter. The one thing of hers they hadn't tried to take. The flame caught easily. I watched the letter curl and blacken, Marion's careful handwriting disappearing into ash. Above me, through the pavilion's open windows, I could see my phoenix carving catching the last rays of sunset. The carved eyes gleamed like embers, forever watchful, forever rising. Everything okay? Sarah called from the herb garden. Better than okay, I said and realized I was smiling. A roll of thunder rumbled across the lake, summer storm coming. The women began gathering their teacups, heading inside with that easy familiarity of people who feel safe, who feel at home. I looked up at my phoenix one last time as the first drops fell. They buried me in silence, I whispered to the gathering storm. So I bloomed in peace. The wind picked up, scattering the last ashes of the letter across my grandmother's garden. Somewhere in the distance, thunder answered. I believe stories like this find us for a reason. If this one touched you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day, and tomorrow's might be the one your heart's been waiting for.